Very real question for you. What counts as good news for Liverpool from now on? With Jurgen Klopp leaving, with lots of speculation around the club, how do you know what the future of the club actually holds? With Virgil van Dijk giving quite quite ambiguous or uncommitted comments yesterday after the game, basically saying, will you be here in a Jurgen Klopp era? That's a very big question, not yes, I will 100% be here. What is it that we have to expect over at least the next 6 to 8 months as Liverpool fans? Obviously, we should expect a new sporting director. Obviously, we should expect a new manager in that time. That's the minimum that we probably should demand as fans, right? But equally in that, I think all the fallout from Jurgen Klopp leaving, the fact that there are probably some people at the club who are here specifically because Jurgen is the manager, and then on top of that, there are also some people who see other chances, other opportunities, other ends to their careers, possibly people like Virgil van Dijk who are 32 years old, probably getting towards the point in their career where they're thinking about their inevitable decline at some point, even if they don't want to acknowledge it right now, even if they aren't actually in a noticeable decline at the moment, they still have to acknowledge it. What is it that we're meant to think about them? And then what does that mean as a knock-on for the rest of the squad in the first place? I mean, these are a squad of people who've been bonded by Jurgen Klopp, a manager who is famous for his bonding skills, for his people skills, for bringing a group together around a cause. Will Liverpool always be able to tap into that with their manager? And is it Liverpool that makes them capable of that? Is it Jurgen Klopp that makes them capable of that? Or is it any manager in a combination that makes them capable? I think the evidence is that Jurgen is that one that's capable. But I think at the same time, there is an element of Liverpool mixed in there. I just don't know how much how much of the percentage of the mix Liverpool are, if that makes sense. Of course, there are players that want to play for Liverpool, but a huge part of playing for Liverpool for years has been playing for Jurgen Klopp, Pep Linders, and being in this exciting environment. Part of being at Anfield has been, well, you're going to play for Jurgen Klopp at Anfield in a Jurgen Klopp team at Anfield. But then that's always also been the case, right? You're playing for Bill Shankly at Anfield. You're playing for Bob Paisley at Anfield. You're playing for Rafa. Some people do come to play for Rafa, actually. You come in to play for Kenny Dalglish, obviously, at Anfield. You come in to play for... No one really came to play for Brendan Rodgers, but they came to play his style of football, if that makes sense. So I guess the idea is that as painful as it is to move on from some of these players, even the 32-year-old Virgil van Dijk, who is having a really good season, but inevitably will age, inevitably will lose that yard of pace, inevitably will lose that aura, we have to separate the feelings and ideas around him from the reality of where we're going as a football club, of what we should expect from Liverpool. Because, of course, there's that aura. Of course, there is that idea of him plus one. And at the moment, it's him plus Konate. Konate might become the A-side, considering how well he's doing. But surely the approach here is not, lean into what we're losing. We have to talk about all the terrible aspects of that and lean into what we took from those people during their time, what they gave to us, and what we can move forward with as a fan base. How did we learn to support Virgil van Dijk in the years where things weren't going so well? Were we supportive in the right way of Virgil van Dijk in the years when things weren't going so well? And why would he want to leave the club? Why would he not want to play for Liverpool anymore? Well, first of all, people have bigger ideas than just one club in their career, right? Virgil van Dijk played for a whole load of people before he got to Liverpool, and he had his peak years arguably at Liverpool, or at least what you can consider his peak years. He was great before he arrived, but you get my point. Maybe he does want to go and sign a big fat contract somewhere else. Maybe he does want to play for a Barcelona because he's Dutch. Maybe he does want to play back in Holland towards the end of his career. Maybe he's speaking to other players and they're saying hey, I'm absolutely coining it in this league, or this is really simple, or he's got people who are talking to him or his agents talking to him about other leagues. Because guess what? Players want other things in their career. And as fans, especially when they've given us so much, I feel like we have to be accepting of that. Will it mean tactical changes? Yes. Will it mean that we are probably going to move on from older systems? Yes. By the way, is that necessarily a bad thing? Moving on from Virgil van Dijk, is that when you've had the best years out of a player, is it not good to get ahead of the trend, get ahead of where we're going and go, well, who's going to be that next leader? Trent is a natural takeover captain. Konate is a natural takeover A-side centre-back. Joe Gomez, could he be that left-sided centre-back, or are we going to go back out into the market? And if we sell Virgil van Dijk, we get value for him. What is it that we go back out there and get? We're thinking at the moment in the same way as we're thinking with Firmino or Mane or Salah when they leave. We've got to get someone who's exactly the same. But guess what? Gakpo, Nunez, Diaz to an extent is like Mane, but you get my point. On top of that, you're even looking at in the front line. I mean, replacing Salah if he leaves anytime soon. Maybe that helicopter's actually going to go and pick him up right now. The joys of filming in London, by the way, are you can be on a rooftop, which I can make my way up to, but then there's that. Anyway, the idea that they'll go somewhere else, I'm fine with. The idea they'll go somewhere that I don't want them to go, I don't feel like Van Dijk, Salah, any of the big people leaving are going to be those people who are going to go to like a direct rival of Manchester United or Man City or whatever. It doesn't seem like that's really a thing. And also, if you want to keep your legacy at Liverpool, that's probably not that either. What I'm sort of working through here is these initial ideas of when you hear a player is going to leave, when you have that shocking moment of, what if Van Dijk is on his way? The worry that it lets someone get ahead of you in the competition. Now, a natural loss of a leader and a captain is Virgil van Dijk. Like, that's the archetypal captain in the modern era, right? Like, big, strong centre-back, plays the ball, has all those qualities, is an amazing leader, is quiet, but is also really good, does the goals, does little things that you're meant to do around that as well, plays the role really nicely, took over from a previous captain who'd done that role in a similar way. But if anything, Virgil van Dijk's like, at least from a captaincy perspective, an improvement on Jordan Henderson, because he's a leader, but he's also one of the best players in the world. And as good as Henderson was, he was never discussed in that same breath as everyone else in the team. And so you always wondered. But at the same time, it's probably worth talking about Jordan Henderson. It's probably worth talking about the makeup of a squad. And if you lose a Van Dijk, you need someone else to be stepping up. You need someone else who's in the same mould as that. Sure, there is a Trent in the back line. Konate seems like a natural leader. We'll probably lose Robbo at some point soon. Gomez seems like one of those more silent and I'll lead by example types, although he is often setting an example. In midfield, we've just got a whole load of young players. You've got to wonder what they're wondering at this point. They're all dynamic. They're all impressive. But will a new manager come in and vibe with them in the same way as Klopp does? And then in that front line, it's like, Núñez, anyone who's young, Gakpo, he came in probably because Klopp convinced him to, probably because it was play with Jurgen, play under this idea. If we bring in a new manager who's got new ideas that aren't that Dutch style of football that we're moving towards, or the Dutch nucleus of an idea that we're moving towards under Pep Linders, then who is it after that? And there is that Dutch contingent, right? You have these little pockets of people. Rafa had the Spaniards. Klopp has very specific players that he takes. Like, there's always a certain kind of, is there always a Japanese player in the side? Is there always someone from Eastern Europe in the side? Is there always someone from South America? Is there always this certain mix now that we have that Klopp is always trying to get that perfect balance? If you don't get that balance, what do you get next? Well, I get it. Virgil van Dijk is probably one of the best players in the modern era, but we're going to have to break some eggs here. We're going to have to accept that people are going to move on. We're going to have to accept that people are not going to want to play for Liverpool in the same way, or possibly just have to go through another rebuild because they want to go to another team and win something before their career ends. Waiting for Liverpool to be good again, even if they do hit the ground running, is a question. And that is a big question under these modern owners, right? Like, can they manage a transition? The only thing we've really seen under these owners are a couple of title pushes, sure, under Brendan and then under Klopp, and sure, cup runs under Kenny. Can they manage transition? Can FSG do something they didn't or have struggled to do in Boston, which is difficult, by the way, in baseball, very different to in football? Can they do, and will they do what they need to in this era, or will they go, okay, we consolidate here, we go through a couple of years of pain, which sure the fan base will stick around for because, whatever, they'll stick around because they're meant to be fans, but it will be painful. It's just interesting to talk about all these questions. Virgil van Dijk will be on his way. Some people say, hey, he's going to go into decline. That's absolutely fine. There will be some players who will go into decline. Salah inevitably would reach that point at some point as well. And then the final one is, and it's that kind of, can we make up the points in the aggregate style, right? Can you make up Van Dijk by pairing him with Konate and making stronger Konate connections with another player? Make Konate the A side and make the other player the B side on that other side. Can you do that by Alisson being that goalkeeper? We can't sustain too many losses in one point, but you're making them up in the aggregate, right? Like, if you don't have him and you have a better six, you don't have that aura, but, Konate now has that aura. By the way, people don't talk enough about how scared people are of Konate in the league because he's so aggressive, because he's so front foot, because he's so good, because he is so active. He gets left behind because of the likes of Virgil van Dijk. Can you make up in the aggregate? Can you shift the emphasis in the team to make up for losing Virgil van Dijk? Yes, if you still keep a couple of other players, your Trents, your Konates, your Alissons. But I get the feeling there's probably going to be a lot of people going, what is it next for me? Robbo said it felt like a shock. Katis said it in an interview, he was like a father to me. There are a number of people like Trent who see Klopp as their father. And so maybe they don't want to have to go through that loss in the same environment. Maybe they want to move on in the same way as Klopp does and have a different adventure, have an episode of their life. How do you support that as fans? Do you go, well, we're better off without someone who doesn't want to be here? Or do you sort of go, no, you got to stay for a little while longer and give us what we have given you? It wasn't just Klopp that gave you this. It was us that sang during those days. It was us that supported Klopp. It was us that supported you through those bad moments. By the way, there are a couple of people talking now about those bad moments that Klopp has kind of gone through. I'll talk about that in another video later on, maybe even tomorrow on the channel. But I'm just interested to know what you guys think. Can we sustain the loss of some big players? And if it is more than one player, who can we almost go, okay, you can leave because we can bring in someone else into that space? A big aura to lose, and obviously he's club captain at the moment. What next for Liverpool and Virgil van Dijk and Jurgen Klopp?